Today, we're undertaking a really fascinating thought experiment. We're not talking about a sci-fi movie plot here. We're using real, grounded science to figure out what would actually happen if a Tyrannosaurus Rex suddenly appeared in our modern world. To make this realistic, let's drop our T-Rex into a forested, low-population region of the Pacific Northwest. You know, dense tree cover, rivers, and plenty of local wildlife like deer, elk, and black bears. It's frankly one of the few places left in the continental U.S. with enough wild, untamed space to plausibly hide something this incredibly massive, even if it's just for a short time.
Picture this. It's exactly 4:47 in the morning. A local wildlife camera trap, bathed in that eerie night vision green, suddenly picks up movement cutting through the dense dawn mist. And whatever triggered it is absolutely massive. We're talking an 11-foot-tall shadow moving deliberately through the trees. Park rangers checking the footage would probably assume it's a bear at first, but then they see the tail. And then they see the head. It's not a bear. It's not an escaped elephant. It isn't anything alive on Earth today.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this is exactly where the viral video ends and the actual science begins. If one of the most powerful apex predators to ever walk the Earth suddenly existed right now in 2026, what would actually happen? How would our infrastructure, our emergency services, and our carefully balanced modern ecosystems handle an animal that has literally been dead for 66 million years?
Section 1. The Biological Reality. Stripping away the Hollywood myths. Now before we get into anything else, could a T-Rex even breathe today? The answer is actually yes. Earth's current atmospheric oxygen levels are close enough to the late Cretaceous period, so the air isn't the problem. The giant animal breathing it is.
Let's break down exactly what we are dealing with here. Based on beautifully preserved fossil specimens, like the famous Sioux at the Field Museum in Chicago, an adult T-Rex measured roughly 40 feet long and stood about 12 feet tall just at the hip. Think about that for a second. Weight estimates from top paleontologists put an adult between 7 and 9 tons. To put that into perspective, that is totally comparable to a large adult African elephant. But notice the structure. It is built completely differently. It's got those notoriously short front limbs, a massive heavy skull, and a gigantic tail that made up nearly half of its entire body length just to act as a counterweight so it could balance on 2 legs.
And that massive skull brings us to this staggering number, 12,000. According to a widely cited 2012 computational modeling study, a T-Rex had a bite force of over 12,000 pounds per square inch at its back teeth. That's just mind-blowing. It makes it one of the absolute strongest bites ever measured in any land animal, living or extinct. It could literally crush a car like a soda can.
Now what's really interesting about this slide is where scientific reality just totally shatters our pop culture perception. We're also used to the Hollywood myth of an unstoppable sprinter chasing down a speeding Jeep at 25 miles per hour. But the scientific reality? More recent biomechanical studies using tail and leg tendon modeling suggest its top speed was actually way closer to 12 to 20 miles per hour. So it was likely a walker or a jogger. Why? Because a 9-ton skeleton probably couldn't handle the sheer stress of a full sprint without risking catastrophic bone-shattering injury. Don't get me wrong, it's still faster than you or me on a good day, but it's definitely not the high-speed pursuit monster from the movies.
Section 2. The Containment Crisis. The Clash of Eras and Infrastructure. You see, a 9-ton animal's brain never had to process something like an interstate highway or a chain-link fence. While the animal is just trying to orient itself, our modern civilian barriers simply wouldn't even slow it down.
Watch how incredibly fast this escalates. In the first 10 minutes, there is no military response, just absolute confusion and a flood of 911 calls that dispatchers will 1,000% think are a prank. Within the first hour, local wildlife officers would be the first boots on the ground, frantically trying to figure out if it's maybe an escaped zoo animal. But within 48 to 72 hours, as the reality of a 9-ton prehistoric threat sets in, this entirely transcends local police. It becomes a full-scale civil emergency, triggering Department of Homeland Security and National Guard exclusion zones purely because of the massive scale of evacuation required.
So, the crucial point is right here in Step 2 of the Live Capture Challenge. Step 1, actually locating the thing, is basically the easy part. A massive hit-generating animal leaving 3-foot footprints is incredibly easy to spot with thermal drones and satellites. The real nightmare is tranquilizing it. Think about it. We have 0 existing dosage data for a species that's been dead for 66 million years. Every single restraint method, every sedative dose, and every wild plan to transport a 9-ton bipedal predator would be a complete, highly dangerous guess.
Section 3. The Ecological Threat. A modern mismatch in the food web. Because while emergency services are struggling with containment, our ecologists would be flagging an entirely different kind of nightmare.
A T-Rex evolved to hunt slower, multi-ton, heavily armored prey. Think Triceratops. But modern prey in the Pacific Northwest, like elk, moose, and black bears, are vastly smaller, unarmored, highly alert, and incredibly fast. The T-Rex might actually really struggle at first, simply because absolutely nothing today moves like its natural prey. And as for humans? Well, based on the sheer caloric needs required to sustain up to 9 tons of mass, we are simply way too low-calorie to be primary targets. It wouldn't deliberately hunt us, we'd honestly just be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
But those massive caloric needs lead us straight to ecosystem collapse. The animal isn't intentionally malicious, right? It's just hungry. But just one single T-Rex would need an enormous amount of food every single day. It would completely outcompete our existing apex predators like wolves and bears, and it would consume prey species far faster than those local populations could ever possibly recover. We'd be looking at a severe regional ecological disaster within a matter of months.
Now, the immediate follow-up question everyone asks is, could scientists try to clone more of them? Well, let's look at the hard scientific reality of cloning. DNA is amazing, but it has a half-life of roughly 521 years under ideal conditions. After about 1.5 million years, it is completely fragmented and entirely unreadable. And since the T-Rex went extinct roughly 66 million years ago, its DNA is entirely gone. Dust. The scientific conclusion is firm here. Cloning one from fossils is scientifically impossible. This is strictly a one-off scenario.
Section 4. The final outcome. What happens 1 year later? Let's look past the initial chaos of those first few days. What does the long-term reality actually look like?
But before we reveal that 1 year reality, I want you to guess something. In this entire catastrophic scenario, a 9-ton predator wandering modern America with a 12,000 psi bite force, what do you think would be the actual highest risk to human life? The answer is probably not what you expect.
And this brilliantly illustrates the strangest, perhaps most tragic part of our entire thought experiment. The real threat is us. The single greatest risk to human life wouldn't be the T-Rex hunting people. It would be human behavior. The very second credible footage went public, thousands of people would flock to the area for views, for social media clout, just for the chance to film it on their phones. These uncontrollable crowds would cause deadly perimeter breaches, turning what is essentially a wildlife containment issue into a massive, highly dangerous public safety crisis.
So, 1 year later, we are left with really only 2 realistic outcomes. First, the tragic reality. The animal is euthanized because it presents such an uncontrollable public safety risk that authorities simply cannot contain it. Or, the best-case scenario, it is successfully captured, sedated, without dying, and permanently confined to a custom-built, heavily secured research facility where it can be studied. A scenario where a T-Rex just lives freely and indefinitely out in the modern wild, that's completely impossible given our modern population density.
For 165 million years, the T-Rex was the ultimate ecosystem architect. But, as the quote goes, the world it ruled is gone. If it came back today, it wouldn't be defeated by nature or by its own biology. It would be defeated by a modern world of highways, drones, and crowds, a world that was simply never designed to survive. Which leaves us with one final, haunting question. If our modern world is entirely incompatible with the ghosts of the past, should we really be trying so hard to bring them back? If you found this breakdown fascinating, join us for the next explainer.